Hello, and welcome to another episode of Through the Monocle. Today we will be discussing Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children from 2016. And away we go. As always, I'm your host, Grant Ingram, and today I am joined by a brand new co-host. You've never seen him before, and you'll probably never see him again because we don't like him very much here. It is Grant Skillen. How you doing, Grant? The man.
I'm good.
So, we are talking Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, which is a mouthful. Say that 3 times fast.
I'm good, thanks.
It's based on a book by Ransom Riggs, which is a heck of a name. And it's cool. The book came out, I believe, in like 2014. That seems right. I'm gonna double check this. 2011. My bad. It was published in English, and it was the first of I believe 6-book series. The movie came out a few years later in 2016, September 25th of 2016, and it stars Eva Green as Miss Alma LaFay Peregrine, who's a Yimbrin, Terrence Stamp as Abe Portman, Judi Dench as Miss Esmeralda Avocet, which is, again, the names. And then it's got Asa Butterfield as Jake Portman. And then people I've never heard of down the line.
You're missing one person here.
You mean this guy?
Sometimes the elements get the best of them. The older penguins know that it's just a matter of time before they call out,
"I'm freezing my nuts off!"
Yeah.
I mean, the guy in the first half of that clip, yeah, but not the second half.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. Halfway through the movie, I went, wait, is that Samuel L. Jackson?
Yes. And like, I was very surprised as well. His character was not in the book, which is interesting enough, I guess. But I thought he was a good villain. Like, I liked him.
He was, yeah.
Tim Burton directed this thing, in case you're curious. And that's a lot of damage. But it's a movie. It's an interesting movie. I would liken it to Percy Jackson more than Harry Potter. But it is Fox's next direct Harry Potter comparator. It's solidly solid. That's all I can really say. I love the books. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Like, I've read all the books. The books are really cool. So the books are based around these old found photos that the author found and created these stories. Like, they're old trick photographs. We see a couple of them in the movie, but like the levitating person, the Millard, the Invisible Man, all those were these old these old trick photographs that he created stories around, which is a really cool idea. And then they made a movie. Grant, what did you think of this movie?
It's a decent movie. It's definitely like a solid movie. I wouldn't say it's anything exceptional, but
it's a movie.
Yeah.
That's what critics say too. I believe it had like a 64 Rotten Tomato and a 60 audience score. Like, it's solid. It is the only one of its franchise. I would argue it shouldn't have been, because it was definitely better than Percy Jackson, and Percy Jackson got 2. It also, I believe, made more money than Percy Jackson, but I can't back that up off the top of my head.
I can check that real quick, but that wouldn't surprise me, because I mean, this is definitely a better, like, of the two, no doubt this is the better movie. It's got, I would say, some similarities actually in the beginning of it.
Yeah, it's that same sort of, you're a not normal kid, but you're normal enough, and then all of a sudden you see your granddad. Well, first off, I want to say, spoilers, just throwing that out there. You see your granddad die, and you're like, everybody thinks you're crazy because dogs eat people's eyes, apparently. And you go to a psychiatrist, and that's where the similarities pretty much end.
Yeah, so this movie made $296 million on a $110 million budget. The Percy Jackson movies both made around 200. I think the first one was 220. The second one was about 200.
Which is weird, because this is not as popular of a book, I don't think.
I don't think so. I was going to mention that. It's definitely the better movie, though. Like, I would say Percy Jackson got the second movie based off of franchise recognition more than the actual quality of the movie itself.
Yeah, this is a better movie. I'd argue it's a better book franchise too, because the books are just inherently interesting. Like I'd recommend them to anybody of any age. If you like
Yeah,
reading.
I haven't read this series admittedly, but
That's a
Percy Jackson I
crime.
would say has much more name recognition. Where like you've heard of Percy Jackson, you may not have heard of Miss Peregrine. It's like I hadn't heard of it before you mentioned it a couple
But
months
it
ago as a possibility.
made a decent amount of money. Like,
Yeah,
and
I
that
mean it
amount of
made
money,
180 million.
I think that amount of money would normally give you a sequel. Like, it's kind of surprising to me. I wonder if the people who were creatively involved just didn't want to make two. It did definitely end really solidly. Just to jump there, like I love the time travel, the way it handled time travel here. Like that was really cool.
Yeah,
I believe
it's interesting. It's a totally different approach to like Harry Potter, where in Harry Potter with time turners, what you did always happened, but here you can actually go back in time and change the future, which I find really interesting.
Yeah, and I do like that. Like when he was going back in time, he was having to hop loops, and that's
Mhm.
really cool. And that is something they took from the book. Well, that's one thing I want to talk about. The book's plot is pretty much the movie's plot until we get to the end where it's not.
Okay.
So the books build up to a big bad named Call from memory. It's been a few years from memory. And I believe the character that was Samuel L. Jackson's character, I believe he served Call up until the last one, even though he wasn't that same guy. He was essentially that same guy. It was also a lot bigger of a deal about the hologasts and the whites. Like there were more of them and they were more of a global thing. Like I believe Call had been turning people into these things. They also didn't have their peculiar abilities like we see Samuel L. Jackson have in this one. It's all very interesting, like because they're not major changes, and that's what makes it work. It's the book essentially kind of if you didn't make sequels. Like I personally really enjoyed it. It's a solid movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if we're going to compare this to ones in this cycle, definitely a better movie than Percy Jackson. Definitely not as good as the Harry Potter movies, but still
Whoa.
still a solid movie. Like I
Yeah.
don't think I'm going out on a limb saying either of those opinions.
See, I feel like Harry Potter was set up better because like they knew they were going to make 8 movies. Like if this one had decided, screw it, we're making 5 regardless of how they do, this would be fantastic. Like all of my gripes go away because like it feels like if it just didn't tie itself in a bow at the end, like there's more story to tell.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Because you get Grandpa's back, you get the little love story at the end, and you get Miss Peregrine's alive, and that's essentially where it ends.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Grandpa didn't come back in the book. Like I'm pretty sure the approach to time travel in the book was that yes, you can do things in these loops way back when, but they don't affect things in the future. Like everything that is happening in the future is happening now, and everything in the past is happening now.
Interesting.
Sorry, I'm just showing off my very.
That might be how it was, and I misinterpreted it.
No, I think you read the movie right, but the book I think was a little different because they said in the movie that like if we kill Mr. Barron now, your granddad will be alive.
Mm-hmm.
I also did like how like Emma and all of them couldn't get out of the loop. I believe in the book, and I'm just gonna be wrong here most likely because it's been a while. I believe in the book, once their loop collapsed, they were able to leave.
Interesting.
It's very interesting. There were also more like you could spend hours outside of a loop instead of just minutes. Yeah, it's cool. I really enjoy like it feels like X-Men.
Yeah, it definitely had that vibe. Like the beginning had the bit of like a Percy Jackson vibe, in my opinion, of a family member dies, and then maybe a little bit different where the mom dies on the way to the camp. Where here that happens, and then he ends up going to the home, but still that similar type of feeling. And then from there, I definitely got more of an X-Men vibe, for sure.
Yeah,
like it's solid.
Yeah, I will say I did enjoy that they all thought he was crazy and he was just hanging out with these people. Like I really like that aspect of it. Like his dad was like, "Did you kill these sheep?" And you're just like, why are there dead sheep? And then later they pay that off because Tim Burton is a freaking genius.
Yeah, but then there's also where they were like, yeah, we suspect he was cheating on his wife. It's like, no. I mean, maybe, but not
See, in the
them.
book, Emma and Abe were very much romantically involved. In the book, Emma and Jacob were also very much romantically involved. Keep in mind, Abe was there for decades in the loop before he left to go fight in the war. So they had spent time together, and it wasn't like he was old. He was their age before he went and aged. Yeah. Which is cool. Like, I like that concept of like this secret world where time just stops. Like, that's very neat to me.
Yeah.
I really do wish they had made the sequels because the book sequels are really good.
Yeah, I mean, this movie was definitely good enough where like I wouldn't have been upset if there was a second one based off of this watch through. Like,
I would have seen
there's
it.
definitely a good enough movie where like it's not like the Percy Jackson movies where you could watch the first one and argue, yeah, it's a well-known series, but maybe not a second movie. Here, like, yeah, there's definitely room for a second movie. I think there definitely would have been a place for it.
Yeah, and with Percy Jackson, like the first movie was not Percy Jackson. It just wasn't that story. This one was, essentially. It boiled down to the same. And I would have liked, so in the books, the way it goes, it's like John Wick. I know you haven't seen John Wick, but I'm going to explain it to you. The first one is this very grounded. He goes and meets these people, kills a white and a hologas, finds out he's peculiar. It's cool. The second one, it's like there's this whole world of peculiars. It's not just this one loop and that other loop. It's like a lot of loops. And so he's hopping between them to all these peculiars. And by the fifth one, they have what's called the Panlupticon, which allows them to travel essentially via elevator to these different loops. In this hellish, and it's headquartered in this hellish like hub called Devil's Acre, where Call, the big villain, is being resurrected. And that is really cool to me.
Samuel L. Jackson's back.
Pretty much. Samuel L. Jackson's just like, and you will know that I am the Lord, which is a Pulp Fiction reference. I wish I had that clip.
That's a lot of damage.
That is a lot of damage. And we lost our viewer. Thank you for that. Phil Swift scared him away. There's people in this town that have done that for $5.
That's what she said.
I'm getting power hungry. I need
He is getting power hungry. I think he's also saying that we need to move on into talking more about specifics in this movie. Grant, did you have any memorable quotes that stood out to you?
I had it pulled up. There was one quote.
One quote.
Let me find it.
A single quote. I'm going to let you find it, but you're wrong. Here is a fun fact.
Okay.
The house where the children live was an actual house. It's called Notteboom, which I probably just absolutely murdered, and can be found near Antwerp, Belgium. He also used as few digital effects as possible. He said it was nice to shoot on location, to be connected to a place in geography while having people actually floating as opposed to doing it all digitally. That's cool. And you can tell when Enoch was like reviving things, like the stop motion that he's famous for was there, and that was really neat.
Yeah.
Really neat.
So I have my quote if you're ready for it. So Emma at one point is keeping Baron pinned against a wall and says eventually we're going to run out of breath and then it'll be all over. Death for your beloved Jake and Miss Peregrine. Everlasting life for me. Then he gets a whiff of her breath. Ew. And I meant for you.
Gosh. It was a very funny movie. Like there was a lot that was, I got a lot of good laughs out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also like very twisted. A couple of changes that they made. So in the book, Emma was a pyrokinetic person and Olive was the floater. And they swapped that for this one, which isn't a huge deal until you realize it changes a lot. Like if you have to have Olive like doing all the clearing out and stuff, it just makes some interesting little changes. And then also, the twins weren't really a big part of the book, but here they had like freaking Medusa abilities. They were freaking Uma Thurman out there.
Yep.
Yeah, turning people to stone. Just just little things. Again, I'm reviewing it from somebody who really likes the books. So yeah, that's where I'm coming to it from. What I like about these is they're very very self-contained stories. They're almost like a loop in of themselves.
Yeah.
And
So
then-
like me knowing nothing about it, I was able to pick this up and go, okay. And I'm kind of able to understand some of the stuff as it goes.
And now you can read all of the books. You're going to do that, Grant. I'm going to make you. You're going to make me watch Harry Potter. I'm going to make you read.
But reading is more than watching a movie.
Maybe. But
I specifically requested it.
so deal with it. So what else stood out to you? I'm going to go down the IMDb trivia page because I'm out of standout things. Like this movie was perfectly a movie. Like so I'm going to look at the trivia.
So one thing I found in the trivia is that the date of the loop is actually different in the movie. In the book, the loop is September 3rd, 1940, but in the movie, it's September 3rd, 1943.
Why? Why is that? Yeah.
I'm just reading the trivia.
Fair. Gosh. This is the second collaboration between Eva Green and Tim Burton. The first was Dark Shadows. Burton is like fantastic. I've seen 2 or 3 movies that he's done. I think I've seen Corpse's Bride, but this and the Alice in Wonderland movie he made are absolutely fantastic. I remember we reviewed both of the Alice movies on our other show. Let's talk about nothing.
Go check it out.
Go check it out. And I think we C+ the original, which will probably get us killed. And then we really
Not the first season I gave out.
Tombstone. But then we really like the remake, which is weird because I'd always been told the remake was atrocious, but it's really, really not. He does a good job adapting things to fit his style, and I like that. Like this is very dim.
Yeah.
You falling asleep on me, Grant?
No. So here's another piece of trivia down in the spoiler section on IMDb. So the man in the pub says that Jake's American accent is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
That's a joke about Asa Butterfield because he's English, not American.
Which is interesting to me because, like, you would think that
you would think. Another fun fact is that in the book, the holocasts eat the souls, but in the movie, they eat the person's eyeballs.
Yeah, that's right. I'd forgotten about that. I guess the eye is the window to the soul. I like
That's
how
exactly what the thing continues to say. A common proverb holds that the eyes are the window to the soul.
I like how Burton described Miss Peregrine as a quote scary Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
She also has the ability to turn into a bird, which is cool. I also love the scene where Jacob and his dad are riding the ferry and he's yelling up at the Peregrine like, "Hey, I'm here. Please don't crap on me." And it was Miss Peregrine the whole time. I thought that was really funny.
Another fun fact about the movie is Miss Peregrine doesn't show up on screen until 30 minutes into the movie.
It's Jacob Portman's journey to an old, decrepit house.
Yep.
Some would say he's rolling on in. Now I'm getting power hungry. I bumped my microphone. Now I'm getting power hungry. Yeah. It's a good movie. That's what I keep coming down to. It's not incredibly memorable. It's not.
Yeah.
The books are better. They are. But it's a good movie. I would have loved to see the second one. Probably wouldn't remember it either, but I would have loved to have seen it.
Yeah. Like I said earlier, there definitely was room, I think, for a second one. Because like Percy Jackson, Harry Potter, of course, those movies are all good. There's a bit more like difference between the books and the movies than we kind of mentioned. Like some of the characters have different stuff that they do in the Harry Potter movies than they do in the books. Here's a cool video I found on YouTube. What?
Dumbledore asked calmly.
Yes. But like there was a really cool YouTube video I found. I can't remember who it's by, but he went through and found every time a person's name was mentioned in the book and kind of ranked the mentions compared to the amount of screen time they had in the movie. And so then he went and said, in the books, this person, I think he had like 91 people that he did it for.
Wow.
So it's like this person was like 85th out of 91 in the books, but like 45 out of 91 in the movie. So they had a lot more screen time in the movie than they had mentions in the books. So there's a
Interesting.
bit more kind of fluctuation than I realized, but still it may be like a different person doing something, but it's still a lot of the same story.
And that's how this is. And I like it for this a lot. I will say, if now that we're doing reboots, they need to reboot it. Like it needs to be a TV show. Just do it already.
They could absolutely reboot this.
I mean, we've already redone Willow. Redo this. This is better.
They're redoing Harry Potter, for crying out loud.
And Percy Jackson and
Percy Jackson.
all his TV shows. Make this a TV show. Give me a Hunger Games TV show too.
And while we're at it, next week, a series of unfortunate events that got rebooted. They made the movie and then they made it into a TV show.
Yep, and we are going to talk about that, as he said, tomorrow. No, next week. Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't have much more to say. This is very short.
I don't really either. We've said a lot of the same stuff. Like it's a pretty good movie. Like
it's a movie.
It's a pass. Like it's not a fail for sure. Like I would recommend, like if you've read the books, I'd say go watch it.
It's a good enough movie. Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. It did what it set out to do. They adapted the book really well.
Yeah,
I think it was very good. For what it is, I would have loved to see more. I would have loved to have seen them planning more. Like even if they John Cartered this sucker and they just planned for more, I'd be happy with it. Yeah. That's where I'm at. I think it's rewatchable because I can't remember it very well.
He's got to rewatch it to remember what he saw.
I'm kidding, but
So throw this out there. If you don't remember it, is it really rewatchable because it wasn't memorable?
It is memorable though. Like it is. There are things I remember very well with it. But like I can't think of anything specific that stands out, despite the fact that the action scene was really cool. And like it was a surprisingly gory PG-13.
Yeah.
Like those are the two things that really stand out to me. There's a lot of like really cool art. Again, the practical effects are really neat. It's a solid movie. That's all I really got for you. It's a without a doubt a pass. And thank you for the like, person on Facebook. Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you liked it. I did a little thumbs up. I feel cool. Yeah, I think that it hits all our criteria. Like I think it's enough of a movie. Now, this is not a movie you write home and go, it should have won an Oscar. It should have won an Oscar. No, it should have won something, like a sequel. It should have won a sequel.
I was about to say that same thing.
Yeah, that's just how it is. And sometimes it be like that. They say it don't, but it do. Yeah. So I guess before we close out this surprisingly short episode, we should say we've got a very cool interview coming up on let's talk about nothing with Mr. Philip Shabazz, who you might recognize as the voice of Altair from the first Assassin's Creed game, which is cool. And he's also
keep going.
He's also in The Chosen, which is also cool.
Yeah.
We got that coming up on Let's Talk About Nothing this Saturday, assuming we could do audio surgery on it in time.
Yeah.
And then next week,
not only do we have him, we had the pleasure just before this, a little about an hour and a half ago or so, we got to interview Taylor Cahill, who was the body double for Wonder Woman on Shazam.
Yes, and I have artwork for it. Give me a second. Let me pull the artwork for it because this is cool. So artwork. It was a really awesome interview. I just want to say this is the mock-up. And if you're interested in either of these interviews, just check out this channel. It'll show up here. And it'll also be in audio on our Spotify, Apple, whatever. This is the artwork. She was the body double for Wonder Woman. You see her there with Zachary Levi. Like she's in the Wonder Woman costume. She was Wonder Woman. She should be Wonder Woman again. Did she say that? I don't know. Did she? Also, I can't speak English anymore when I'm talking to people. So if you just want to make fun of me, at me on Instagram, at the Grant Ingram, at Grant Skillen on Instagram, and he won't see it. So at the Grant Ingram
_Skillen. But
yeah,
shoot me a friend request. I'll see it in a year and a half or whenever I get back on.
Yeah, and then be sure to pay attention to that. Go subscribe over on our other show. I think we have a link here in the thing, but we'll get to that in a minute. If you want to support our shows, our show, all the shows, the network, this show, the other show, that show, your show, my show, Grant's show, you can do that at patreon.com/theculturednerd. That has a tier for every podcast. And all of them. Joe Rogan. You can pay Joe Rogan. No, you can't pay Joe Rogan there. You can pay anyone that works for the Cultured Nerd there, including yours truly. If you want to do that, just click on through the monocle and throw your money at the screen. We're going to make sure none of that money goes to Grant. That's how you know you're supporting a good cause. All right. As always, I've been your host, Grant Ingram.
And I've been your co-host, Grant Skillen. Thank you to each and every of our Patreon supporters, both for us and for the network as a whole. Thank you to Jose for the logo and to Taylor for the intro.
Yep. And as always, as they say on PBS, thank you, viewers like you, for joining us. And if you enjoyed this, first off, congratulations. Secondly, leave a like, subscribe. Be sure to come back next week as we talk about a series of unfortunate events. It's sure to be a very fortunate episode. And check out that interview we did with Philip this weekend. You can scan that QR code right here on the right to do that. Or if you want to watch it on video, you can scan the QR code on the left. Yeah, so that's where we are. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you next week.